One morning soon, millions of Americans will wake up to find that the last grocery store has quietly disappeared overnight. Over 3,800 retail closures have been confirmed for 2024 and 2025 alone. According to the New York Times Business Desk, most are happening in rural and low-income areas, places where one Rite Aid served 3 counties, where a Best Buy was the only affordable stop for household basics. What's vanishing is the last sense of agency that working-class Americans had left. And this is not about economic decline. It's the silent unraveling of daily life in towns and neighborhoods that were already hanging by a thread. When even the most ordinary cornerstones of life are quietly withdrawn, what's left for the rest of us to hold on to? This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. And today we will reveal 15 biggest chains in America that will disappear in the next few months. Number 1, Walgreens. What would you do if the only store within 50 miles that still had your medication simply vanished? Life must be hard then, isn't it? I don't want to scare anyone, but you need to be warned about this situation, because Walgreens is disappearing quietly. At its peak, Walgreens were everywhere. By the late 2010s, the chain had over 8,000 locations serving millions of Americans every single day. Whether you were picking up antibiotics for your family, stocking up on cold medicine, or grabbing a jug of milk late at night, Walgreens was there. It was woven into the rhythm of everyday life. But now the chain has confirmed plans to shut down at least 150 more U.S. stores by the end of 2025. That's on top of over 500 corporate layoffs in mid-2023. And there is still a wave of rumored closures that calculated up to 300 more. The consequences may hit rural communities hardest, because these aren't places with many options. In some counties, Walgreens is the last pharmacy for miles, so when it disappears, so does access to basic medication, emergency care supplies, and household needs. The explanation from the top sounds simple. Costs are rising, profits are thinning. But if you look closely, there's something deeper happening. Walgreens has slowly restructured its focus. The CEO now is leaning into dense urban areas where spending is higher, letting go of towns where foot traffic might be slower, but the need is often greater. These quiet exits aren't about performance, they're about preference and profit, and the consequences reach far beyond an empty storefront. In many regions, seniors are now forced to drive over 30 miles for insulin refills. Single parents juggle time off work to travel further just to buy baby formula. Former employees, some who had spent more than a decade with the company, were dismissed without warning. They're left to search for new work in areas where jobs are already few and highly competitive. Just a few days ago, a woman in Kansas showed up with her husband's prescription slip, only to find the lights off. She stood there for a while, unsure whether to laugh or cry. Her situation might lead us to the question no one wants to face. What happens when even your local pharmacy no longer sees you as worth the effort? Some say it's just the end of a store. Others feel it's the beginning of something darker. Maybe the fading of places that once gave working Americans a sense of being cared for. And as we search for what's still standing, you might want to look at the next one, because number 2 will make you not want to trust the corporation's promise anymore. Number 2, Walmart. They used to say that if there's nothing else around, there's always Walmart. But now, that comfort is slipping away with no explanation. Walmart was never just a store. For decades, it stood like a pillar in small towns and forgotten zip codes across America. With over 4,600 locations still operating in 2024, it remains the largest private employer in the country, responsible for nearly 1.6 million jobs. In many rural regions, it's the only place left where families can buy fresh produce, fill prescriptions, or grab a coat without spending hours on the highway. But that familiar giant is shrinking. From 2023 to 2024 alone, Walmart has already shut down at least 24 U.S. stores, including sites in Chicago, Portland, Atlanta, and Washington, D.C. Most of them weren't luxury mega stores, more like neighborhood markets, built specifically to serve low-income communities. And when they go, there's often nothing left behind. Statista and Brookings report that thousands of workers, many of them older adults, single mothers, or people of color, have been laid off as part of Walmart's quiet restructuring. At the same time, the company has rapidly expanded automation and shifted focus to e-commerce. That change may be efficient on paper, but for a 60-year-old cashier who doesn't own a smartphone, it's a locked door in places like Mississippi, West Virginia, and Arkansas. Walmart is the only option. A 2022 Feeding America survey found that 1 in 6 U.S. households relied on Walmart as their primary food source. When these stores disappear, entire neighborhoods turn into food deserts. People are forced to drive miles for eggs and bread, or settle for junk food from overpriced gas stations. And the ripple effect doesn't stop there. As these stores close, so do hopes of steady employment, evening foot traffic, and neighborhood safety. Strip malls hollow out, parking lots grow weeds, some towns say crime creeps in where commerce once stood. It's not the kind of crisis that makes headlines, but it unravels lives, quietly, every day. Walmart used to promise everyday low prices. Now, in the very communities that once built its empire, it's delivering something else entirely. Empty shelves, shuttered entrances, and the echo of what used to be affordable American life. And as you begin to wonder what will fill the silence left behind, look toward the next name on this list. That one is slowly going cold. Number 3, Amazon. It wasn't a warehouse. It was the last lifeline for towns that hadn't seen a new grocery store in over a decade. And now, it's vanishing, leaving behind nothing but rising costs and disappointing customers. Between 2024 and early 2025, Amazon has closed over 100 distribution hubs, delivery stations, and office locations across the United States. These shutdowns have hit states like California, Texas, and New Jersey hardest, regions that were once anchors of Amazon's logistical web. Officially, it's part of a post-pandemic cost-cutting plan, but to the people on the ground, it feels like being left behind. Over 27,000 direct employees have been laid off in just 14 months, but the damage doesn't stop there. The ripple effect has swept through hundreds of thousands of indirect workers, warehouse temps, independent drivers, janitorial staff, contract packers, entire communities that depended on the machine humming in the background. And now the hum is gone. Amazon used to be the invisible scaffolding of American life. With over 167 million US users monthly, it wasn't just a convenience. It was the only option for millions in rural areas where no big box store had opened in years. For the elderly, for the poor, for those without transportation. It was a silent helper that showed up on porches when no one else could. But as Amazon pivots toward AI, robotics, and high-efficiency warehousing, human hands are being quietly phased out, and not everyone is able to log in and keep up. In remote communities where internet access is unstable and digital literacy is low, the platform's retreat is a social fracture. People aren't just losing jobs, they're losing the ability to function day to day. In some regions, retirees now pay 40% more for medication because they have to rely on local stores with monopoly pricing. Disabled residents can't get the supplies they once ordered weekly. A delivery driver who had counted on flexible Amazon work to support his 2 kids now stares at an empty schedule, wondering what comes next. The tragedy isn't just in the layoffs, but in what they represent. When Amazon leaves, it doesn't just take paychecks, it takes away access, control, and the quiet stability of knowing something you need can still find its way to your door, and somewhere in that void, the question lingers. If even the company that promised you could get anything in 24 hours walks away, who's left to help you through the next 24 months? Number 4, CVS. There was a time when your corner CVS was as dependable as your mailbox. Always there, always open, always enough. Now, in town after town, the lights are going out, and no one knows if they'll ever come back. CVS Health once operated over 9,000 stores across the United States. But by late 2024, the company confirmed a plan to shutter nearly 900 of them over 3 years. On average, it's 1 closure per day, officially. They're realigning their retail footprint to focus on digital expansion. But corporate phrasing doesn't ease the fear of a grandmother standing outside a locked door, clutching a prescription for her heart medication in more than 600 low-income rural towns. According to the Center for Health Services Research, CVS or Walgreens wasn't just the nearest option, it was the only one. Milk, pain relievers, children's cough syrup, blood pressure pills. They all came from that one store. So when it disappears, the consequences are touching every corner of your daily life. For elderly Americans without reliable transportation, The closure of a CVS can mean missing doses of insulin or going weeks without antibiotics. From Ohio to Mississippi, emergency rooms are reporting increased visits tied to missed refills, especially among aging residents who relied on their local CVS for life stability. And for the over 240,000 employees CVS had as of 2022, these closures are more than a corporate adjustment. Though layoff numbers haven't been made public, insiders report that more than 5,000 positions could be impacted, mostly among pharmacy techs, delivery drivers, and retail workers. Many of them held on to these jobs for years, even decades, believing the store would never leave the community it served. CVS wasn't just a building, it was woven into people's lives. In the good old days, it was flu shots in the fall, vitamins for the young moms and children, or just a bottle of aspirin after a long day. Now, some former locations are boarded up like abandoned relics, stripped bare of everything except the memories left behind, and with medical debt now contributing to more than 60% of bankruptcies in the US. According to the American Journal of Public Health, the loss of a nearby CVS is a quiet step toward catastrophe. A missed refill here, a delayed prescription there, and suddenly, a manageable illness becomes an emergency. Experts now warn of pharmacy deserts, which means entire regions with no walkable access to basic medication. What used to cost $4 for cough syrup might now require a $400 ambulance ride. The silence is the most haunting part, and as the shelves empty and the signs dim, you can't help but think about the fact that when the place you trusted with your health has decided you're not worth staying for now, then who will still be standing when the next storm comes? Number 5. Best Buy. For more than 30 years. Best Buy wasn't just a tech store, it was the lifeline to modern life for small towns and working-class families across America. In places without Apple stores or Targets, it was the only place you could walk into, ask real questions, and walk out with a working laptop or refrigerator. But since 2022, that lifeline has started to snap. As of early 2024, Best Buy had already closed over 70 stores across the country. By Q1 of 2024, they announced plans to eliminate more than 60 additional locations by early 2025. The reasons: collapsing rural sales, soaring commercial rents, and a wave of online price competition that undercut their physical presence. The human toll is staggering. Over 13,000 employees have been impacted either through layoffs, store closures, or reduced hours. This hits hardest in the heartland, where Best Buy was often the last remaining tech resource. When it closes, there's no one left to fix your printer, explain your Wi-Fi issues, or help your child choose a school laptop. According to their investor reports, Best Buy served between 1.8 and 2 million customers per week, over 90 million purchases per year. That level of reach isn't easily replaced. For seniors needing help with hearing aids, or college kids looking to repair their devices, the absence leaves a noticeable void. Now, in towns where Best Buy once thrived, only an empty shell remains, and for many, that dimmed storefront marks more than just a business lost. It feels like technology itself has quietly packed up and left the neighborhood. Number 6. Rite Aid. In 2016, Rite Aid stood tall as the third largest pharmacy chain in the country, with more than 2,400 stores across the U.S. for many working-class families, seniors, and disabled individuals. It was more than a drugstore, it was the closest thing to a local lifeline. Prescriptions, toiletries, and a warm, familiar face behind the counter made Rite Aid a daily routine. But by 2023, that legacy began to unravel. Saddled with over $3.3 billion in debt and more than 1,600 lawsuits linked to opioid prescriptions, Rite Aid filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The fallout was swift and brutal. By early 2024, over 520 stores had closed permanently, with entire cities like Philadelphia and Sacramento losing all nearby locations. The company has since confirmed plans to shut down even more sites throughout 2025. As the chain crumbles, its remaining assets are being auctioned to competitors like CVS and Amazon Health. But for communities that relied on Rite Aid, there is no replacement, especially in low-income urban zones and remote rural areas. Many now face pharmacy deserts, places without a single drugstore for 10 to 15 miles. For the elderly, traveling that far can be risky, even dangerous, particularly in winter or during illness. Tens of thousands of part-time workers, mostly in aging towns, have lost jobs. Local neighborhoods are left with shuttered windows and empty sidewalks where Rite Aid once stood. It's not just the loss of a store, it's the fading of a routine, a safety net, a familiar part of everyday life now quietly gone. Number 7. Macys. There was a time when Macys was where every holiday began: Easter dresses, back-to-school outfits, Thanksgiving sales, and Christmas windows that brought entire families downtown, at its peak. Macys had over 700 stores across America, serving not just as a retailer, but as a seasonal tradition. But now, that tradition is quietly unraveling. In 2023, Macys announced it would close 150 stores, beginning with 50 shuttered by the end of 2024. In just Q1 of that year, revenue fell by 7%. Their explanation was blunt: stores with weak sales and declining foot traffic would be cut. The pivot to e-commerce is accelerating the collapse. Younger generations and urban buyers now prefer faster, cheaper platforms like Amazon and Target, but in doing so, they've left small-town Americans behind in many communities. Macys was the only department store offering affordable winter coats, holiday decor, or formal wear. Its disappearance leaves a void not just in the mall, but in people's lives. Tens of thousands of workers are at risk, including longtime employees who've worn Macys name tags for over 20 years. As these anchor stores vanish, entire malls decline. Local diners, salons, and kiosks nearby also lose traffic. Eventually, the economic gravity that once held the town center together collapses. For older Americans, Macys wasn't just a store, it was memory stitched into fabric. Now, they return only to see locked doors and signs that whisper final days. Because when the store that dressed America for its biggest moments begins to fold, something deeper begins to unravel. 2. Number 8. Bed Bath & Beyond. Once a household name with more than 1,500 stores nationwide, Bed Bath & Beyond was where generations of Americans bought their first sheets, their baby's crib bedding, or that last-minute wedding gift. It was stitched into the fabric of everyday life, especially during life's big transitions: new homes, new babies, new beginnings. But in April 2023, that familiar blue and white logo began disappearing from cities, towns, and suburban plazas across the country. The company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy after failing to resolve crushing debt. Nearly all stores were ordered to close, and more than 14,000 workers lost their jobs. With them went countless community connections, routines, and a sense of place. The downfall wasn't sudden, it was slow and systemic. As Amazon and Target offered faster, cheaper home goods, Bed Bath & Beyond struggled to compete. Its failure to modernize, to embrace digital commerce in time, and its decision to cut private label brands led many longtime customers to quietly walk away. The closures hit hard in mid-sized towns and aging shopping centers where the store was often the last large-format home goods retailer. For older shoppers and families without easy access to e-commerce, replacing a set of bath towels now means driving 20 miles or paying inflated online prices if they even know how to order online. Bed Bath & Beyond wasn't just about products. It was about presence.
Wilted greens to checkout lanes that move at a glazed. Let's dive in right now.
A shared memory of building a life, one room at a time, and now. All of it is quietly fading into dust. Number 9. GameStop. Once the heart of every mall for an entire generation of kids and parents. GameStop wasn't just a store, it was a weekly ritual. During its golden era between 2000 and 2015, GameStop operated more than 7,000 stores globally. With the vast majority spread across the US, launch nights for new games felt like local festivals, where kids lined up in pajamas and parents waited patiently, sharing snacks and stories. But in 2024, that pulse is fading fast. According to official filings, GameStop has shrunk to roughly 4,200 stores. Over 300 locations closed in 2023 alone, mostly in suburban and low-income neighborhoods. Q1 of 2024 revealed losses exceeding $50 million. Widespread layoffs followed, and with them, the familiar faces behind the counter began to disappear. The root cause lies in a rapidly shifting industry. Digital game downloads now dominate platforms like PlayStation, Xbox, and Steam. Disc sales, once the backbone of GameStop, have sharply declined. The company's attempt to shift toward e-commerce lagged behind Amazon and Best Buy. And while the 2021 stock market frenzy brought short-lived headlines, it failed to build a sustainable future. The human impact runs deep. for suburban teens. GameStop was one of the few accessible places to hang out, browse, and belong without spending much. For millennial parents, it was the bridge between past and present, a place to share childhood nostalgia with their own children. And for aging retail workers without degrees, it was often their most stable employment. Now, those storefronts sit empty, or worse, replaced by vape shops and silent reminders of what's been lost. Number 10. Penney. For over a century, Penney was more than a department store. It was a cornerstone of middle-class American life. Founded in 1902, it grew into a trusted destination for school uniforms, wedding dresses, comforters, and cosmetics. By the early 2010s, it operated more than 1,100 stores, offering working families everything they needed under one roof, often with flexible payment plans that made essential goods feel attainable. But in 2020, the brand filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and shuttered over 240 stores within 2 years. As of 2024, only about 660 locations remain, and most sit in aging, half-empty malls that have lost their foot traffic and energy. The aisles feel quieter now. Some departments are closed off entirely, and in many towns. JCPenney is no longer a household name, it's a fading memory. JCPenney's decline wasn't sudden. Years of outdated leadership, slow e-commerce adoption, and mounting competition from Amazon, Walmart, and Target left the brand trailing. Then came COVID-19, a final blow that exposed just how unprepared the model had become for a digital age. The loss is deeply personal for small towns and older Americans. Many relied on JCPenney to buy work clothes, formal wear, or gifts without traveling hours or battling online platforms. More than 100,000 jobs disappeared between 2010 and 2024, most belonging to hourly workers with limited digital skills and few options. Now, the vacant glass doors and taped up for lease signs mark more than a business closure. They represent a slow unraveling of the stable, familiar spaces that once shaped American daily life. Number 11, Sears. There was a time when Sears wasn't just a store, it was the country. In the 1970s, Sears operated more than 4,000 locations across the U.S., dominating the retail landscape with catalogs mailed to nearly every American home. It was where families bought their first washer, their first refrigerator, and sometimes even their first house shipped and assembled, page by page, for millions of workers. It wasn't just a job, it was a path to stability and the middle class. By 2024, that empire has all but vanished. According to USA Today and Business Insider, only 11 Sears stores remain open nationwide. The number is so low, it barely sounds real. After declaring bankruptcy in 2018, the company rapidly shut down more than 700 stores within 3 years. The few that remain are shadows, dusty, unrenovated, tucked inside nearly empty malls that feel more like museums than markets. The causes are many, but the failure was human. Under CEO Eddie Lampert, Sears suffered years of cost-cutting and strategic paralysis. It lagged behind in e-commerce, lost consumer trust, and failed to modernize. While Amazon and Walmart surged, Sears stood still and slowly disappeared from the public mind. For older Americans in the Midwest and South, Sears was once the go-to place for appliance repairs, fair payment plans, and reliable service. Now, there's no replacement. Technicians are out of work, families without credit can't access basic home goods, and entire malls, once lively with foot traffic, have gone eerily quiet. No farewell, no headlines. Just fading letters on forgotten storefronts, one more American pillar quietly collapsing into dust. Number 12, Tuesday Morning. Tuesday Morning wasn't flashy, but it was cherished. Founded in 1974, it became a quiet staple for millions of middle-class and elderly Americans offering home decor, linens, toys, and gifts at steep discounts of 50 to 80% at its height. The chain operated more than 700 stores across 39 states, often tucked inside modest shopping centers in suburbs and smaller cities. For many, it was where holidays began. A Thanksgiving tablecloth, a Christmas candle, a frame for the baby's first photo. It was the thrill of stumbling upon something beautiful and affordable. But by May 2023, that quiet joy ended. Tuesday Morning filed for bankruptcy for the second time in 3 years. The company confirmed it would shutter all remaining stores and liquidate assets, marking the end of its retail footprint by late 2023. Over 200 final locations were closed within months, and thousands of workers, mostly older women and part-time employees, were let go. The collapse came from deeper structural shifts. Online giants like Amazon and Wayfair overtook the discount market, with no real e-commerce strategy. Tuesday morning was left behind during COVID-19 lockdowns. Deep cost-cutting gutted the in-store experience, leaving once loyal customers disillusioned. The impact stretched far. Retirees, widows, and single older women lost a familiar comforting space. Low-income shoppers lost access to affordable essentials, and communities lost one of their last traffic-driving tenants, triggering a domino effect of closures nearby. There was no tribute, no headlines, just shuttered glass doors, dust settling, and a vanished comfort no one thought to mourn until it was already gone. We're not just witnessing economic shifts, we're living through the quiet erasure of places that once held our routines, our milestones, our comfort. For millions of older, working-class Americans, these stores weren't just where we shopped, they were where we lived life. A warm meal on a cold night, a quick pharmacy run that meant everything. These weren't luxuries, they were the anchors of daily survival. So if you ever stood in line at Walgreens at midnight, or picked out school shoes at Penney, tell that story. Because when the storefronts go dark, only our memories can light what's left behind.